What does it mean to have like a good life? How do we make the right choices, and how do we know we made the right choices? And how do we figure those things out? I guess those things have been on my mind lately, so talking about those today. I am Jackie, and this is JLOG, where I'm trying to log my transformation to be a completely different person in 1 year. And I've been doing different things like exercising and hiking and doing these videos and trying to improve how I talk and think, and also try to be calm and meditate and all that jazz. And I guess there's been a couple of things that have popped up lately. One is like someone watching commented on my videos, thanks, and he asked me about this channel called Home Math. And I watched a bit of it, and it's kind of sent me down this like spiral of dating videos. And I'll get to why that's important later. But at the same time, I was also currently thinking about systems and how do we understand different things so that we can like come to, I don't know, some sort of consensus or decide on like a path that's good for you. Like, how do we know when you've made the right choices? Like, because there's so many decisions out there. It kind of comes back to that idea of the fig tree. If there's too many figs and you don't know which one to pick, and then they kind of all rot and fall to the ground. So those two things I've realized are kind of related. This is actually the third time I'm making this video, honestly, and it's because the first couple times I was just sort of stumbling through it and I didn't quite click for me. But I actually realized they're talking about the same thing. So for the dating thing, a lot of people kind of go through like these checklists. Like there are certain things that you want, like height, money, like certain hair color, like a certain ethnicity, certain personality or something like that. And it reminds me of this example that a lot of young women are using on the YouTube channel called Looking for Alice. And it was about this woman, I think she's like an author, and she was asked if she was a lesbian because she has like a female partner. And she just replied and said, well, I just like Alice. And I think that that's more how dating works. We meet different people, we stumble onto different lives, and sometimes something just sort of connects. They usually don't meet this like checklist of stuff, but we like to like imagine that we need those things in order to, I don't know, have a fulfilling love life or something like that. Or without all of these things, somebody doesn't quite feel attractive. It's sort of limiting. It's like you're kind of creating a little box for yourself and you're saying only anything in this box is good and everything outside of it is bad. And that's how it relates back to, you know, making life choices, like career choices. It could be dating and partners. It could be where you want to live. It could be how you want to live your life. What's important to you? Like, what do you actually value? What's worth chasing? What's worth like the effort versus the money versus like the enjoyment and the fulfillment that you kind of get out of it. I think of it in the same way now. There are these ideas of what makes a good life, and we fall into those traps. Like, you have to have a certain amount of income, you have to live in a certain place, it has to look nice, it has to have nice furniture, it has to have plants, you have to be able to exercise, travel, you know, all that stuff. But again, that's just another checklist. It's just a box that you're given. And it makes me think a lot about where do these boxes even come from in the first place? And it's because we are social creatures. They are instilled into us from a young age, through our culture, through how our parents interact with each other, how your family interacts with each other, how jobs like affect their life and how that affected how they treated you, and so on and so forth. There's all of these interactions, and your brain, honestly, when you're that young, is basically a sponge. It doesn't know how the world works. You're not born as a baby being like, I need $100,000 a year, or I need to live in downtown Vancouver, and I have to have a condo and have a partner that is like an 8 out of 10. Like, you don't know any of those things. Those things are just told to you. Whether they're told explicitly or like implicitly, just sort of suggested, or you see them around on the internet. But I think what it comes down to is we are so reliant on what other people tell us that we don't just appreciate Alice anymore. We don't realize that when we do something, like if I go biking or hiking, or I go out in nature, or I just sort of like enjoy doing those things. And for some reason, I've been feeling more lately that I'm not allowed to enjoy it because it's not productive. It's not, I don't know, setting me up for retirement or improving my living standards or something like that. It becomes chasing like this box rather than just simply living your life. And I guess it's cheesy, but it kind of comes back to that whole, universal question is what's the meaning of life? And there really isn't one answer. There's just a bunch of opinions of what people think are good or bad because they've struggled through those things and they want to avoid those struggles, or they want life to be easier, or they think certain things or people or actions or whatever create the problems of society. I think that there's so much like anxiety in the world. Like even before the whole millennial thing and now all the younger gens, like there's just this seed of anxiety of just living in society because, yeah, it's hard and there's a lot of pressure. But at the same time, I feel like we give in to that pressure. We don't allow ourselves to create our own sort of standard of living. We feel like we are enslaved by some sort of definition of what's a good life. And that changes from, different areas and cultures and stuff. But generally, that exists kind of everywhere. So I guess what I'm trying to say is I think a lot of us no longer just allow yourself to exist and do the things that you enjoy, because you already have to do all of these things to survive. But we don't like counterbalance it. Everything has to be productive nowadays. Maybe because it feels so difficult to survive and things cost a lot more. But at the same time, we have some amount of control over the kind of anxiety we feel. If we're constantly feeling pressured by these things, it's because we accept those facts, that box, as true, when maybe it's just imaginary in the first place. Like if you made enough money and you can pay your rent and you can have some good food and enjoy time with friends and, play games or do your hobbies, play music and watch good movies, maybe that's enough. But I think we're kind of stuck in this mode where we never feel like anything is good enough. So whether it kind of comes back to that comment about dating or just like living a certain lifestyle, or for me, I guess I'm trying to figure out like what is the thing I want to pursue, like what is the career I want to have. Maybe that doesn't like really matter. Maybe the secret is more of the sort of Forrest Gump way of living. And I've watched that movie a couple times now, and each time it feels different. But when I revisited it when I was older, in my 30s, I think, I understood what it finally kind of meant. And the whole idea was like Forrest Gump was kind of slow and he, I don't know, couldn't pick things up and he couldn't talk properly and he couldn't move properly and all that stuff. So he was considered lesser, whereas Jenny was like the smart one and pretty, but she made all of the wrong life choices because she kind of overthought everything and she constantly struggled. Whereas Forrest just kind of went from one thing to the next and was just there. He just did what he was told to do. He did it as best as he could. He kind of went through that phase in his life, and when it was over, he went on to the next thing. He didn't really think about whether any of these things was the best thing to do. He just did them, and he was present in that moment. That's sort of the double-edged sword of thinking too much and being educated and having all this information, is that we don't know how to like judge. We're like bombarded with so many choices that we think we're always going to make the wrong one, rather than just understanding that there's too many choices to make. And the one that you're currently in, you just try to make the most of it. And if it's not working for you, then you stop and you move on to the next thing. So maybe that's the kind of realization I'm having right now. I kind of needed this break to sort of get like some space, because I've went through a bunch of things. I've had a long-term relationship and then it didn't work out after like 12 years. I've changed careers. I went back to school and now it still feels like it doesn't work out. But I think that's just how life works. I think we just have to accept that. And I hope for any younger people who are out there that they will like understand that there's no one path to, I don't know, greatness or to happiness or whatever it is. It's more that you embrace where you're at. And if you need a break, you need to take a break. But then you kind of push on to the next thing, and you push and you struggle, you improve and you level up. And then when you kind of hit a wall, again, you take a break, you reevaluate, and then you kind of like decide on the next thing. Maybe there is no super fancy secret to living a good life. And I guess the Buddhists maybe had it right, or the Stoics, is just to be present, not get overly attached and overly emotional in the struggles, and understand that life is just a series of events and they continue on until they don't. Ultimately, we all meet our end. So we might as well like kind of enjoy the journey in the first place. Yeah, I'm gonna go with that for this week. I guess it's not my usual update of doing hiking and stuff again, which I did. I went back to hike and I met somebody while I was at the top there. And I kind of just like went with it. You know, like things just happen. And then I guess you see what happens next. We want different outcomes and we want things to progress in a certain way. But I find more and more just like constantly pushing and constantly feeling that pressure is not helpful, and it sort of takes away from all of it. You have to also just like pull back and let things settle. When we push too hard, it's just a constant struggle. You have to have some balance of like pushing for something more and also just letting yourself have some space to settle and be okay and just feel okay where you are. So that's it for now. Until next time.